So I needed to make a video about Netflix series Harry and Megan. What is it called again? Escaping to insanity, manipulating men, voodoo spells. I don't know what to call that series. I don't recall the name. I just recall feeling manipulated from the first minute. I was reminded of, we used to have this girl in the army many years ago. Mind you, I enlisted in the Israeli army back in December 1982. And then I fell into this, somehow I came into this office and there was this girl there and she was constantly lying about everything. She was a beauty queen. She was all kinds of things. She was a really troubled girl, I realized, without having studied psychology at this point, because she constantly lied. And she would just tell the most outrageous stories constantly. And it all turned out to be lies. And this is what it felt like. Hello, beautiful dog. So I really think that every human being or every person, every animal do have a positive aspect, except Hitler. Sorry, Kanye West, and the neo-Nazi that Trump invited, and Trump. They all don't have redeeming qualities, but except those individuals and various Nazis and racists, I think most human beings have also points of light. But that's what I believe. I would like to believe. However, a person like Meghan Markle and Harry really makes you change your mind. First of all, many people in the media portray the situation as if Harry is a victim, that he's being manipulated, that he's like, he says, this is like my mother. It's funny because I want to tell you something. When I got married, my ex-husband said exactly those words to me. Oh, you remind me so much of my mother, who was a Dutch, strict nurse, Calvinistic nurse, who you could eat off the floor of her, bathroom. She was so clean. Why am I laughing? Because men sometimes are so delusional when they're a little bit off. I think it's a sign of a mental disability if you think that a person who is very different than your mother reminds you of your mother. This is what I think personally. And yeah. So I just wanted to say that. And I also wanted to say that I think Meghan Markle is possibly one of the worst human beings I've ever encountered. Since that girl in the army, which I immediately felt sorry for her because I thought, oh, you must have such a sad life if you have to make things up, because I never felt the need to make things up. I never felt like, oh, I need to make something up, because I always thought this is who I am and why should I make anything up? And so, yeah. The whole documentary is full of nonsense, and one of the things, the first lies, is that they met on Instagram. There have been so many versions of how they met, but it was always through a common friend. Somebody introduced them, and she also said she's never heard of the royal family before, like she was living under a rock. She only studied international relations, so she doesn't really know the royal family, because obviously, the British Empire is not a subject that they cover in international relations. So, I don't know, she must really think everybody's very stupid. And maybe we are stupid to waste our precious time on Earth watching a documentary after documentary after documentary by this manipulative person who, frankly, by now I'm convinced is like something to do with voodoo. And let me tell you why. Why do I think she's under voodoo spell? I have to sit down for this. I don't know, like she's casting spells on people. What makes a person abandon their family completely? He had such a nice brother and sister-in-law and nieces. And now those poor children, that scene where the baby is touching a picture frame and Megan says grandma is so scary. It's like a scene from a movie by Betty Davis, Who's Afraid of Baby Jane. It's like the woman is insane. She wants her baby daughter to bond with a picture frame. I mean, my father passed away when I was young. I never ever thought to introduce his picture to a baby of mine or a child of mine. They saw his photo later on, but never touch and say grandpa. Like, what is wrong with you? I mean, it looks good, but it's completely insane, first of all. And second of all, I want to add that I really do think they're both crazy. And I think it's ugly what they're doing. I mean, I don't like the idea of royal families. I don't like the idea of royal families. There's nothing that will convince me that somebody has a right to anything just because they were born, you know? Like, this is how feudalism works. Why in the world would you have rights just because you were born? That doesn't make sense to me. And I never liked that idea. And this idea has failed again and again. They're not smart. They don't achieve anything. They don't save the universe, that's for sure. So why in the world do people still have monarchies? Beyond me. I really, really don't understand it. I don't get it, and I don't like it. So I just wanted to say that. And the other thing I wanted to say is, I think it's a waste of time to watch it. It's just it's like watching a documentary on a mental illness, like that takes place in an institution, except I don't understand what makes anyone give them awards, and especially an organization like a famous organization. I mean, what is wrong with you guys? Why do you give people like that rewards? They are monsters. They demonize everybody. And she has a living father she demonizes. She plays around with people. She's exactly why some women don't have friends like me, because we don't trust other women because they behave the way she does. She's just all about herself. She's one of those women. I remember I met a woman like that once a long time ago. She would meet, like, because misery loves company, because she just had bad luck at the altar. The guy that was supposed to marry her didn't marry her. So she met up with me and another friend of mine to moan about it. But as soon as she had another boyfriend, it was like, who the hell are you? She didn't know who we were anymore. And a lot of people are like that, women I mean. Men don't do things like that. You know why? Men just don't have this sense of, men are just not made like that. They're not like, they wouldn't do that. She's like the worst ever. And I predict that as soon as those kids could run, they're going to head for the hills. Just listening to poor Archie say things, it just seems to me he's been deprived from so many things, like human company that isn't manipulated. She seems like toxin in a bottle. Like if you want to kill somebody, you take Meghan Markle and you put her in a bottle, and then you have Harry as well. I think the fact that she's allowed him to lose his most important role in life. He was in the army. He was doing important things like the Invictus Games, and then all of a sudden she comes along and she just completely takes over. And I thought it was like really bad. Anyway, I'm going to end this message by saying, please don't watch the Netflix. And I'm going to tell this to myself as well. There are so many things so much worthwhile your time, so much worth your time, more than the stupid documentary that cost $100 million dollars. Can you imagine how many people it could have fed, saved, whatever? I mean, and they get rewards for what? Manipulating people? I do think she should get a reward for being poison. Like if you want to kill, like I would agree that they could use her, they could market her as a solution to the Iranian regime, for instance. Just send her over. They'll die in a minute. She's so toxin. Everything she touches is just poison. And her relationship with her father says everything. Her mother, something is wrong with that woman. Something is deeply wrong, because she seems to have forgotten the fact that she disappeared from her daughters. It's my child, she says to the journalist. Child? She's like almost, she can be a grandmother in certain societies. In Jewish Orthodox society, a woman Meghan Markle's age is a grandmother. A child? Hardly. She acts like a child. She acts like a spoiled child. Her father has a heart attack and she doesn't even bother to ask how he's doing. She doesn't introduce her living children to a living grandparent, and she introduces him to a picture frame. I think they're going to end up in a mental hospital, driving off a cliff, or just, I don't know, somebody's gonna maybe assassinate them because they're just so nauseating. But I don't think anybody will bother. Nobody will even bother to do that because they're just so uninteresting. For me, they're so boring, not interesting people, but toxin for sure. So I would definitely market her as poison against dictatorships, or just send her over anywhere, and she just poisons everything. She has the opposite of the Midas touch. She's like the toxin touch. Everything she touches turns to poison. Anyway, peace, light, and love. I'm finishing this. I have to go.